Picture this. You just paid $200 for a single-day ticket. You walked through those gates. Your family's posing in front of Cinderella's castle. The sun's warm. The music's playing. Everything feels solid, real, permanent. But right beneath your feet, and I mean directly beneath the ground you're walking on, the earth is dissolving. Not metaphorically, literally. This moment, as you walk this moment, carbonic acid from rainwater is slowly eating away at limestone far below the surface, creating invisible cavities that grow bigger every single day. And when those cavities get too big, the ground doesn't just sink, it collapses. Hollow. Gone. This isn't speculation or doomsday thinking. It's geology. It's physics. And it's happening right now under the most visited theme park in the world. Welcome to Be Rob's Ice. Today, we're uncovering the groundbreaking truth about Disney World's secret foundation, a dissolving maze of limestone that's turning the happiest place on Earth into a slow-motion geological crisis that nobody talks about. Here's what they don't tell you in the souvenir shops. Florida isn't just a flat peninsula basking in eternal sunshine. It's a sinking ship made entirely of rock. The entire state, every single square inch, from the Keys to Jacksonville, from the coast to the interior, sits on top of the Florida platform. Think of it like this. Imagine a giant sponge, waterlogged, ancient, stretching across 300 miles of peninsula and extending deep beneath the ocean for hundreds more. That sponge is made of limestone. Limestone is calcium carbonate, and calcium carbonate has one critical weakness. It dissolves in acidic water. Rainwater, the kind that falls on Florida every single afternoon during summer monsoon season, is naturally acidic. As it percolates through soil and plant matter, through decomposing vegetation and accumulated organics, it becomes even more acidic. Scientists call it carbonic acid. It's weak, but it's persistent. That acidic water seeps down, 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 through sand layers, through clay deposits, into the limestone itself. And once it reaches the limestone, it starts eating, dissolving, creating microscopic channels that become bigger channels. Bigger channels become visible crevices. Crevices become cavities. Cavities become caves. And caves become disasters when the weight above them, the soil, the clay, the concrete, the buildings, the people, becomes too much to bear. This process isn't new. It's ancient. It's been happening for millions of years in Florida, ever since the limestone was exposed to acidic groundwater. But here's where the story gets truly insane. For the first time in human history, we've built a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure directly on top of this active dissolution zone. We've built hotels, highways, shopping centers, hospitals, theme parks, homes, entire cities, all on dissolving rock, all on ground that's getting weaker by the hour. Florida has more sinkholes than any other state in America. Not close, not even competitive. We're talking thousands of them. And they're not equally distributed across the state. They're concentrated in specific geological zones, the Karst regions, the exact same region where Disney World sits, Central Florida, Orange County, Seminole County, Hillsborough County, the limestone landscape of the Sunshine State. Karst, that's the technical geology word for terrain shaped by dissolution of limestone or dolomite, two types of carbonate rocks. When acidic water eats carbonate rock, the landscape gets pockmarked, riddled with holes, dotted with springs where underground water forces its way to the surface. Some sinkholes are small, barely noticeable dips in the ground that you might walk past without thinking twice. Others are catastrophic, city-swallowing, building-destroying, life-altering disasters. The scariest part about sinkholes is this. Most of them start underground. You don't see them coming. You can't predict them with any certainty. The ground looks perfectly fine, perfectly stable, perfectly safe, until the moment it isn't. You're walking on solid earth 1 second. The next second, the ground beneath you isn't there anymore. You're falling. Or worse, you're swallowed without any warning. No tremor, no sound, just gone. The 1981 Winter Park sinkhole, less than 50 miles directly south of Disney World, in the exact same limestone formation, proved exactly how catastrophic these events can become. It opened up without warning on the evening of May 8, 1981, near the intersection of Denning Drive and Fairbanks Avenue in this prosperous residential community. And by the time engineers finally stabilized it days later through emergency filling operations with dirt and concrete, the hole was 350 feet wide, 75 feet deep. That's the height of a 35-story office building. Picture that amount of earth missing. Gone. That sinkhole swallowed a 2-story residential home entirely. It destroyed a car repair shop, a business that had been operating for years. 5 Porsche vanished into the earth, gone forever. An Olympic-sized swimming pool collapsed into it. The owner of the house, May Rose Owens, watched her entire home disappear. The community rallied. Neighbors contributed. Strangers donated. Together, they raised $50,000 to help May rebuild. The total damage was estimated at $4 million in 1981 money. That was one sinkhole, one event, 43 years ago. In the exact same geological zone where Disney World operates every single day, entertaining 50,000 guests. But here's what they didn't tell you in the dramatic news coverage of Winter Park. That sinkhole wasn't an anomaly. It wasn't a once-in-a-generation freak event that happens once every 1,000 years. It was a preview, a documentary of what Florida's geological reality actually is. The state has been experiencing thousands of sinkholes every year since the 1980s. Thousands, not hundreds. Thousands annually. And those numbers are accelerating. Insurance companies are tracking the trend. Geological surveys are documenting the pattern. The rate of sinkhole formation in Florida is increasing, not decreasing. This is the new normal. Orange County, where Disney World is located, sits in the absolute heart of one of North America's most sinkhole-prone regions. Not because of anything Disney did. Disney didn't cause the dissolution. Disney didn't create the limestone formations or the acidic groundwater, but because of where Disney chose to build. The park was constructed on what used to be swampland in Orange County, drained and developed in the 1970s when Walt Disney was still alive, when environmental concerns were secondary to visionary expansion. Beneath that drained swamp, you guessed it, limestone, riddled with cavities, created over millions of years as acidic groundwater slowly dissolved the rock grain by grain, creating an underground Swiss cheese landscape that nobody fully understands even today. The dissolution has been happening for so long, and the cavities are so extensive that the full scope remains unknown. Every drilling project reveals new cavities. Every geological survey finds additional weak zones. This is an ongoing discovery process. Disney's engineers absolutely knew this in 1971 when Walt Disney World first opened to the public. They had to know. They studied the ground extensively. They drilled test wells. They conducted geological surveys. They understood the risks intimately. The engineering team included specialists in Karst geology, in Florida's unique geological challenges, in foundation design for unstable terrain. So what did they do? They adapted. They engineered. They built their utilidors, a vast underground tunnel system that now runs beneath the entire park, like hidden veins carrying lifeblood. These utilidors carry water, electricity, wastewater, air conditioning lines, communication cables, even the trams that move cast members and supplies behind the scenes through underground pathways. The system spans 40 miles of tunnels, 40 miles of infrastructure running beneath the theme park, mostly hidden from guest view. Guests have no idea these tunnels exist, but they're the reason the park functions at all. They allow Disney to move supplies without guest visibility. They allow engineering work to happen without disrupting attractions. They're integral to the park's operations. These tunnels are genuine engineering marvels, but they're also admissions of geological risk. You don't build a 40-mile network of hidden infrastructure beneath a theme park unless you're worried about what's underneath, unless you're trying to protect against an unstable foundation, unless you're addressing geological concerns that the public doesn't discuss. The utilidors sit on top of a water table that fluctuates seasonally, rising with heavy rains and dropping during droughts. Above a limestone foundation that's actively dissolving, actively developing new cavities, actively creating the conditions for future collapse. This foundation isn't stable. It's not static. It's dynamic. It's changing. Disney World covers 25,000 acres. Most of it is developed. Most of it is built with structures. Most of it sits on top of unstable ground that is actively being dissolved by processes nobody can fully stop or control. Now here's the scale anchor that makes this real. 25,000 acres is roughly the size of the city of San Francisco. Imagine an entire major American city built on dissolving limestone. Imagine the infrastructure challenges. Imagine the geological monitoring requirements. Imagine trying to manage that risk. Beneath Disney's Magic Kingdom alone, the limestone bedrock has been extensively studied for cavities, for weaknesses, for areas of concern. Engineers monitor water tables constantly using sophisticated sensors. They have implemented grouting systems, basically injecting specialized cement and sealant materials into suspicious areas to fill small cavities before they become large ones. But you cannot grout an entire aquifer. You cannot grout an entire limestone formation that spans hundreds of square miles. You can only grout the areas you have identified and tested. You can only delay inevitable dissolution. You can manage risk. You can monitor conditions. You can hope you are lucky. And hope is a terrible strategy when you are sitting on dissolving rock. The question isn't whether sinkholes could theoretically threaten Disney World. The geology makes that inevitable. The question is, when they will, where they will, how severe they will be, and whether they will happen in populated areas or remote corners of the property. That is the real question keeping Disney's geological engineers awake at night. That is the reason Disney maintains sophisticated geological surveys. That is the reason they do not publicly discuss every cavity found, every grouting project completed, every area of concern identified. In 2013, a sinkhole incident near Disney World, at a resort right off property but clearly in the same geological zone, was a wake-up call that Disney never wanted to receive. A 60-foot wide sinkhole opened without warning beneath a resort hotel. No warning signs, no obvious precursor events. Just suddenly, one day, the ground beneath the building was not solid anymore. Guests had to be evacuated from their rooms immediately. Some guests were in their rooms when maintenance noticed the problem. Imagine that. Imagine being told you need to leave your hotel room immediately because the ground has become unstable. The resort became uninhabitable. Rooms became unsafe to occupy. The entire structure had to be evaluated. The ground beneath had to be studied. The geological stability of the surrounding area had to be assessed. That's not ancient history. That's living memory. That's somebody's vacation being interrupted by a geological disaster. That's the moment when Disney's worst-case scenario stopped being theoretical and started being real. Resort staff knew it. Disney executives knew it. The incident was documented. Questions were asked about Disney's preparedness. And here's where it gets exponentially worse. Climate change is accelerating the dissolution process. Florida's experiencing more intense rainfall events, extreme weather patterns. Hurricanes are stronger. Rainstorms deliver heavier precipitation. Rain hammers the ground harder and longer than historical averages, seeps deeper into the soil and rock, works faster at dissolving limestone. The carbonic acid doesn't need to wait as long. The water doesn't need to sit underground for months. Intense rain delivers massive volumes in hours, forcing acidic water down through the soil column rapidly, aggressively, creating dissolution faster than the rock can stabilize. Scientists have measured this. They've studied the rates. Heavy rain events accelerate limestone dissolution by factors of 3, 4, 5 times compared to typical steady rainfall. At the same time, droughts are becoming more severe, more prolonged. Droughts lower the water table. Lower water tables mean less hydrostatic support for cavities. Less support means they're more vulnerable to collapse. It's a double squeeze. Heavy rains push water down into dissolving zones, accelerating dissolution. Droughts remove water support from above, destabilizing existing cavities. The limestone is basically trapped between two opposing forces, squeezed from above and below, and it's cracking under the pressure. Scientists studying karst landscapes in Florida, in Kentucky, in Mexico, have documented this exact pattern in recent years. More sinkholes reported. Bigger sinkholes when they do open. Sinkholes appearing in places that were previously considered geologically stable based on historical records. And every single sinkhole in Florida, regardless of location, follows the same geological script. Dissolution, hidden underground for months or years. Cavity formation as rock dissolves. Loss of support. Eventual collapse of the overburden. This is physics. This is inevitable. The economic stakes are almost incomprehensibly large. The Orlando tourism industry, Disney World, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, international drive attractions, hundreds of hotels, thousands of restaurants, entertainment venues, convention centers, generates roughly $75 billion every single year for Florida's economy. $75 billion. That's the entire economic output of a mid-sized nation. That's entire retirement accounts, entire college funds, entire family vacations stored in one geographic region. All built on dissolving limestone. All operating in a geological zone that's actively developing sinkholes. That's not hyperbole. The numbers are real. If a major sinkhole collapsed beneath one of Disney's flagship attractions, beneath the Magic Kingdom, beneath Epcot, beneath Hollywood Studios, if guests were injured or killed, if the park had to close for emergency geological surveys and repairs, the economic fallout would ripple globally. International investors would question Florida's stability. Tourism operators worldwide would reconsider operations. Stock prices would fluctuate. Entire business plans would be revised. It would rewrite the financial landscape of an entire region. Insurance companies understand this risk better than anyone else on Earth. In Florida, sinkhole insurance has become virtually unaffordable for average homeowners. Why? Because insurance companies have run the numbers. They've analyzed sinkhole frequency in Florida's karst regions going back decades. They've studied cavity progression rates. They've examined groundwater fluctuation patterns. They've consulted with geologists. And they've concluded that sinkholes aren't rare disasters. They're not exceptional events that happen once per century. They're inevitable, statistically certain. Not rare. Certain. The only unknown variable is timing. When, not whether. Florida law requires all homeowners to carry sinkhole coverage or catastrophic ground collapse coverage. It's mandatory. You cannot buy homeowners insurance in Florida without addressing this coverage. Most major insurance companies have simply abandoned Florida entirely, pulled out of the market, retreated to other states with more predictable geological risks. Others charge premiums so high that the sinkhole rider costs more than the base homeowner's insurance policy itself. $50 a month becomes $100. $200 becomes $400. $700 becomes $1,500. Why would an insurance company charge that much? Because they've calculated the actuarial risk. They know sinkholes aren't outliers. They're expected losses, expected costs. The probability math doesn't lie. For Disney World, that certainty is locked away in proprietary geological surveys and engineering reports. Reports we will never see as the public. Reports that probably list cavity locations, sinkhole risk zones, areas of greatest concern, Recommendations for mitigation. Disney doesn't publicly disclose every sinkhole concern, doesn't announce every grouting project, doesn't publish every cavity found and filled. And why would they? Admitting sinkhole risk creates liability. Liability creates lawsuits. Lawsuits create bad publicity. Bad publicity affects revenue and stock prices. So the reports stay private. The risks stay hidden. The engineering work continues in silence, and guests keep walking on dissolving limestone without knowing it. The utilidors themselves create another layer of risk that most people don't consider. These tunnels, while engineering achievements, also concentrate infrastructure in ways that create vulnerability. If a major sinkhole opened directly beneath or adjacent to a critical utilidor tunnel, it could compromise multiple systems simultaneously. Water main breaks, electrical conduit failures, communications blackouts, waste system backups, all from a single sinkhole event. Imagine this scenario. A cavity forms in the limestone directly beneath the water distribution tunnel that serves the Magic Kingdom. For months or years, nobody knows it's there. The dissolution is happening silently. The cavity is growing incrementally. Engineers monitor the systems, but they can't see what's underground unless they drill directly through it. Then one morning, after a heavy rain event that pushes more acidic water into the zone, the cavity's ceiling collapses. The ground above it shifts. The water tunnel breaks. Not just a small leak, a catastrophic rupture. Suddenly, 50,000 guests are in the park without water access. No bathrooms, no fountains, no cooling systems. In Florida heat, in summer, at peak temperatures. Disney would have to shut the park down immediately. Not for repairs, not just for emergency water restoration, but for geological surveys. To figure out if there are more sinkholes nearby. To determine if additional cavities are forming. To assess whether the entire area is geologically stable. One sinkhole underneath a utilidor doesn't just affect one location. It raises questions about the entire region's subsurface geology. It forces emergency inspections of surrounding areas. It triggers extensive engineering investigations. It creates liability questions. It triggers insurance claims. It creates public panic. And panic during peak season, when tens of thousands of guests are in the park, becomes a catastrophic public relations event beyond measure. Disney has contingency plans. Multiple contingency plans. They have redundant systems, backup water supplies, alternative electrical pathways, trained engineers on call, geological monitoring equipment deployed throughout the property. But you cannot engineer your way out of a natural disaster of that magnitude. You can only prepare for it. And even preparation assumes you know where and when sinkholes will occur. Sinkholes don't send warning notices. They don't announce themselves on social media. They don't give press conferences before they open. They don't follow predictable patterns that allow for perfect planning. They just open, suddenly, without notification, without mercy. The most difficult aspect of sinkhole risk management is that you're essentially playing a geological game of whack-a-mole. You identify cavities, you grout them, but new cavities are forming all the time. The dissolution never stops. It's continuous. It's relentless. It's a battle against a process that's measured in geological timescales, not human timescales. Here's the most unsettling part that nobody wants to discuss. Right now, somewhere beneath Central Florida, beneath theme parks, beneath hotels, beneath highways, beneath residential neighborhoods, limestone cavities are actively growing, expanding, getting bigger, becoming more unstable. The dissolution never stops. The carbonic acid continues its work. The cavities continue their progression toward collapse. It's a process that operates on geological timescales that humans struggle to grasp. A cavity that takes 50 years to form, takes another 50 years to destabilize, takes another 50 years to finally collapse. We live in days and weeks. Geology lives in centuries and millennia. We cannot perceive these processes happening in real time. We can only observe the aftermath. We can only study the ruins and work backward to understand what we didn't see coming. The groundwater in Florida's Karst zones has been studied, but not completely understood. Complete understanding would require knowing the exact location and size of every cavity beneath 25,000 acres of Disney World property. That's not possible. You cannot see all cavities without drilling test wells every 50 feet, maybe every 20 feet for maximum detail. That's impractical. That's impossibly expensive. That would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So Disney monitors what they can. They respond to what they find. But the unknown unknowns remain. The cavities that haven't been discovered yet. The areas that haven't been tested yet. The risks that haven't been identified yet. This is the reality of living and building on karst terrain. This is where the story connects to something bigger. Florida's entire infrastructure, not just Disney World, is built on this dissolving foundation. Highways collapse without warning. Sinkholes swallow cars. Underground utilities break and rupture. Water mains fail and create boils. Communities get evacuated. This isn't exotic or unusual. It's normal in Florida. It's part of living in this state, part of the risk calculus. Homeowners know about it. They pay sinkhole insurance. They monitor their property. Some families have experienced sinkholes directly, watched their homes settle, watched cracks appear in their foundations, watched insurance companies fight over whether damage qualifies as sinkhole versus normal settlement. It's a constant background anxiety in Florida that tourists never think about. Disney World tourists come to experience magic. They come to escape their problems. They don't come to think about limestone dissolution. They don't come to worry about cavities beneath their feet. They come to escape, to enjoy, to feel safe in a controlled environment. But the environment isn't truly controlled. The geology isn't negotiable. The risk is real. The foundation is dissolving. This is B-Rob's Ice, and we're here to tell you the stories that change how you see the world. The stories hiding in plain sight. The geological secrets beneath the places you think are safest. The ground beneath the happiest place on Earth isn't quite as solid as the marketing suggests. And if this story is your reminder that the ground we walk on isn't always as solid as it seems, download our free 72 Hours Disaster Guide. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching. Stay curious. Stay safe.